Hi, I'm Amita. Come right with me. We're doing a little series on point of view, right? Every book that you write has a or more than one point of view. Point of view tends to be first, third, and second person point of view. So you have the I, we, which is the first person point of view. You have the she, he, they, which is the third person point of view. And you can also have the second person point of view where you address the reader or yourself as you. Less used, very rarely used, but I will also do a post on that. So if you haven't already, please do check out my post on close third and distant third and what those two slightly different, though related points of view have to offer you. I'm going to do a post now on the first person point of view, and I'm going to use my contemporary novel, Aria Winters and the Tiramisu of Death. It came out with Polis Books a few years ago, and Polis Books has since closed its doors. So we are looking for a new home for this series about a neurodivergent amateur sleuth professional baker called Aria, who's mixed race, who's neurodivergent, who is probably the coolest character, in my opinion, that I have ever written. But it's in the first person point of view. So notice how first person works, and we'll talk through what advantages and disadvantages it has. Don't get me wrong. I never actually saw Tobias smile or lose his heavy frown the entire time I knew him. But when he was amused or when someone had sparked his interest, something relaxed around his eyes. I'm good at catching little signs like that in people. Signs that they're relaxing, or conversely, signs that they're about to fly into a rage. I learnt that pretty early on in life, and I'm good at it. And I was pleased to see Tobias's face relax at my words. You're not his usual type, he said. Thank fuck for that, I said. And there was that thing around his eyes again, that lightning. Craig looked bored throughout this exchange. I can't say that I gave that much thought to Tobias after our first meeting, but now and again you have an inkling. You meet someone and you think, hang on, here's someone like me. You think it, and the thought eases some part of your heart, the part that deep down is terrified that no one is like you, that you're so different that no heart will ever connect with yours. In any case, I'd had that tiny glimmer of an inkling of kinship when I met Tobias. I saw Tobias a few more times after that, once or twice when I was still with Craig. When after dinner Tobias and I drank scotch and played Monopoly, and Craig watched football or reruns of Top Gear, and later when Craig and I had broken up, I bumped into Tobias a few times on the high street or at the Easter fair. Okay, let's stop there for a second. I noticed, in fact, I chose this because it's the first person, but I noticed I actually slipped into second person, which is quite useful for a later, for a later post. So what does a first person do? What does a first person point of view do? A first person point of view, for example, if you notice passages like this one, so I'm just going to repeat this. I'm good at catching little signs like that in people, signs that they're relaxing, or conversely, signs that they're about to fly into a rage. I'm good at it. This is quite close, isn't it? It's quite close to Aria's head. So again, when she says things like, I can't say that I gave that much thought to Tobias after our first meeting. Very close to her head. Now, if you look back at the post that I did on close third, you'll also see that we stay pretty close to someone's head. Even we can do in a third person point of view. But what a first person point of view gives you is real closeness inside someone's head and what's happening for them. Aria, especially to me, because she's a neurodivergent character, I really wanted to stay very close to her head, because I think if you're showing a neurodivergent character, it's really interesting to see how their head works. And to tell you the truth, when I wrote it, I wasn't even thinking of her as neurodivergent. I was thinking of her as having quite a high level of social anxiety, but over time I think I've realized that she is neurodivergent and potentially has various aspects of neurodiversity in her personality, which I absolutely love about her. So I do stay very close to her. And I think the first person point of view lets you get really up close and personal with a character, so that you're really privy to their immediate thoughts and feelings and what's going on for them in a way that you can't quite do in a third person. The third person is very close, but it just gives you a little tiny bit of distance from your character. That said, there are a couple of other things that you might want to consider. One is whether you want to be really that close to a character, and what advantage do you have of being that close to someone's head, right? Their thoughts have to be interesting, otherwise there's no point. Their thoughts, their voice, their way of speaking has to be quite interesting and quite quirky and quite idiosyncratic, meaning quite sort of particular to them in order for this to work, right? So think about that. Is your character worth going so close into their head? Are their thoughts and the way they think about other people and situations they're in quite interesting? Arya is quite interesting because she is different. You know, she's radically honest, so she gets into trouble many times with people. She's very blunt. She comes across as rude at times because she does tend to just blurt out whatever is going on in her head. She finds it very hard, in fact, to tell lies or to even put on social fronts that we are meant to put on when we're talking to other people. And you know, she doesn't do that. She doesn't play the game in order to be comfortable for other people, which can be quite uncomfortable. But I think that is what makes her a really interesting character to get that close to. So first person point of view, use it only when you think the person's inner way of thinking, feeling, looking at other people is interesting. So that's worth considering when you really want to be up close and personal. Second thing is, what you need to remember about a first person point of view is you literally have no angle into what other people are doing other than what this person lets you see. There are advantages to this because you could have an unreliable narrator who lets you see certain things and doesn't let you see other things that are going on. So you can play with it, absolutely. But I want you to keep in mind that you as a reader is only privy to what this person, the narrator, is letting you into. You can do multiple points of view and all this, but I will get into that in a different post. But for a first person point of view, you stay very close up and personal. You do not go outside their head. You cannot see what's going on beyond what you already know, what they already know and what they have seen. That's worth keeping in mind. That doesn't mean you can't do nature description or setting description or location, because you do all of those things, but they're always seen through this character who's your point of view first person character, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. I was trying to see if I can find a little bit of setting description. Okay, so here's a setting description, right? Anyway, I find nothing in the garden. Unlike the usual manicured trucklewood garden or Auntie Mira's herbal one, Tobias's garden is enticingly wild. Wisteria climbing on just about everything, smothering the pear tree, clinging to the fence, curling around the arch. Flowers straggle over each other and trail on the grass. Bushes are untrimmed. Trees jostle for space. I think with a spark of annoyance that Craig will inherit all this wilderness and he'll have no idea how to appreciate it or what to do with it. He'll probably have it hacked off and concrete put down. And gone will be a part of Tobias's soul. So do you see how I still stayed very close to a first person point of view, right? I still stayed very close to Arya's head. She is describing settings. She's telling us what Trucklewood, where she lives, what the gardens are like, what her Auntie Mira's herbal garden was like, to show you a contrast between how the current garden that she's in, which is Tobias, her friend's garden, what his is like. So she tells you settings. She tells you about the wisteria and the flowers and the bushes and the trees and everything, but she always tells it in her own very idiosyncratic voice, very Arya voice. Flowers straggling over each other, right? Smothering the pear tree. So these are words that are particular to Arya. Someone else might use completely different words. But she also then gives you, excuse me, I'm going to cough. She also gives you an idea of how Craig, her ex-boyfriend, he'll inherit all this from Tobias. What will he do with it? So she gives you her annoyance at what he will do. So as you can see, even though I've given setting, it's still very much in Arya's inner voice that we are privy to all through the book. And it is very much filtered through how she sees something and how she sees other people. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that first person point of view is very close, is very up close to the main point of view character. We stay with their head, we stay with their voice, even more important than their head. We do not have information that they couldn't have or they couldn't have seen. We could have some unreliable narrator stuff that they obviously, that you can play with. But if you think that actually a more distant character, something a little bit more distant, still up close, but a bit more distant, a bit more, you want to do more leisurely descriptions of setting, you want to perhaps give us more sort of slightly more geographical or political or cultural information as you go. Those things are slightly easier with a third person point of view, and you can have a look at my close third post that I did that might help you see the difference between the two. First person, so what I was going to say was that it does allow you these things about kind of being staying close to the point of view person. The other thing is that you may just not like it or love it. It is a bit Marmitey in that sense, first person point of view. Some people absolutely adore it, and some people are just like, that's just not going to work for me. I'm much more of a a classical kind of writer, and I tend to do third person writing. So have a think and have a play and see what you think the differences are and what you might get from trying out a first person point of view. Happy writing.